There are a lot of very real frustrations with diabetes and lots of challenges and complications that may come and all sorts of things that I view it with a different lens now. Like, how can God be glorified through it? How can I use this chronic illness that I have to bring people to God's word through writing, through blogging? How can I help people to see Jesus through this? How can I use it in good?
Welcome to the Type 1 In Midlife Podcast. My name is Melissa Slemp, a certified nutritional health coach and the founder and CEO of Abundant Health with Melissa, where I help women with type 1 diabetes to feel more empowered and live their best life despite their diagnosis. Each week, I will bring conversations and strategies from guest experts and my experience living with type 1 for over 40 years now. So if you're a woman ready to redefine how diabetes can look and feel for you, then the Type 1 in Midlife Podcast is the show for you. Today we talk with Kaycee Parker. She is the author of Devotions on Diabetes, and she has been living with type 1 for over 30 years now, and she comes to share her story and her own personal struggles with her diagnosis and the day-to-day, and how she has turned treating diabetes as an opportunity to seek God and point others to Him. So come listen in. Just a reminder that nothing you hear on this Type 1 in Midlife podcast should be a substitute for professional medical advice. Please always consult your medical professional before changing your diet, insulin dosages, or healthcare plan. Well, hello. Welcome to Type 1 in Midlife Podcast. I am so excited. I have a very sweet friend of mine. Kaycee Parker is here to talk with us. And as I mentioned a little bit about her already in the intro, and she's been managing type 1 for more than 30 years. And she also has a degree in journalism and a storyteller by heart, as she has said about herself, which I love that. And we will dive more into how that has evolved into her brand new book, Devotions on Diabetes, and how your love for God, Kaycee, steers your heart, your writing, and your mindset with diabetes. So welcome, Kaycee. Happy you are here with me today.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so my audience gets to learn more about you and gets to meet you. So share a little bit more about yourself and your family. And if you want to give us maybe even a little diagnosis story, we always like to hear what that was like for other people I know.
Yeah, for sure. As far as diagnosis goes, I was diagnosed with type 1 at 12 years old. And my mom just saw the classic symptoms and took me into the pediatrician. Sure enough, that's what it was. And so we lived in a really small town. And so I was referred to Riley's Hospital in Indianapolis, where we spent 3 days learning all the things, like drinking from a fire hose, right?
Yeah, a lot of information at once. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And just trying to come to grips with what was happening. And so fast forward, I'm 30 years into diabetes now. And by day, I freelance doing graphic design and writing. And I am married to my husband, who is a discipleship pastor. We've got 2 kids. We have a 10-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. And we live just outside of St. Louis.
Very nice. And, you and I, we were both diagnosed. Well, you were 12, which is almost a teenager. I was 14, almost 15. It's amazing, when you get out there and you start talking to people, women, in this case, because I do tend to talk with more women or meeting them that have been diagnosed. How many of us were teenagers? Unfortunately, there's a lot of newly diagnosed that we're also finding out about. And that's an interesting story, too, because I had another guest on, it's another episode that will air, and she had shared that there was something to do with our receptors at that age that can trigger autoimmune. And we're going to learn more about that. But
Wow.
It's an interesting topic. Maybe we'll do a full episode just on that, just to learn more. Not something that we can prevent at our age because
Right.
we're already here.
Right.
I'm all about just trying to figure it out. And I know that's something that I read in your book, and I read I read in some of your articles about just the fact that we just don't know how we were diagnosed. The true betrayal of it, but it makes it just interesting. It's definitely an interesting conversation.
For sure.
Um, Now, you and I connected online, and you're also a contributor to my group coaching program,
Yeah.
which just launched earlier this year. And I've been real appreciative of you coming in. Again, you're a warrior like myself, and you come with a lot of wisdom and just your heartfelt desire to help and to fill other women with hope, which I am discovering is really my theme of the year. I know it's the theme of this podcast is that there's hope in all things. So share what your experience has been meeting these other ladies, and and some of the ladies too in this group are newly diagnosed. And that's such an amazing, it's like, I'm not sure I remember back that far of new, it's just highlights, kind of like what you were talking about being in the hospital.
Yeah.
But I think when we're older and this diagnosis comes, it can be like hitting a wall. So what have you kind of learned from that?
Yeah. I think it is, like you're saying, it's different to be diagnosed as a kid versus, as an adult, being 12 or 14, like we were. It's a big change, and a big change for a kid. But my goodness, to live, 40 years of your life, and then, this big lifestyle change comes to manage a chronic illness that has to be just, shaking your roots.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But no, it's been great to be a part of your coaching team in that group. Like you said, the ladies are newly diagnosed, and I have heard so often lately that it's nice to hear from people who have been, 30 years like I have been, 40 years like you've been, because they can hear and see someone who is intentional, but also living a full life. And so there's, like you said, hope. And so just to come alongside the people, I think the community is wonderful. Just to kind of link arms and do this thing together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I've learned that. I've done some in-person group coaching over the years that I've been doing health coaching, but this is the first online experience, and we're just getting started because we're going to continue this program. And it really has been amazing, and I've always gotten that feedback, just like you say, linking arms and realizing that you're not alone, that, we can't do diabetes alone. It used to be that way. I will say I grew up feeling very isolated,
Yes.
very isolated. So I think we're in a stage now where we're more interactive with one another. Obviously, online, internet didn't exist when we were kids, so there's a lot of favor with that. And just being able to stay in contact with people, that definitely makes the journey a lot smoother and feel more supportive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about share your testimony with God, and how did you become a believer? Do you remember the day, how old you were? Do you have a story to share about that?
Sure. I grew up going to church. That was something that our family did on Sunday mornings. And so I've always had a foundation of Christian belief, for sure. It was not, though, until I was an adult that my faith really came alive and became personal to me. I think as a child, I thought the Bible was historical, and that's kind of it. And now I realize, while it is historic, it's our message from God, and his word is living and active, and it's meant to shape and mold us and to affect our daily lives. That wasn't something that I understood as a kid. And even though the Bible is sort of done deal. Obviously, it's written and it's done. God's still writing his story through us in our daily lives. And so I think once I understood that and that he wants a relationship with us, my faith really came to life and has grown so much since then. I was 29. My husband played a huge part in my faith walk.
That's really nice. That's really nice. Yeah, similar story. I went to Catholic church when I was growing up, so that's where I learned my faith. It was a different environment, though, I will say. I wasn't as close. I wasn't in the Bible as a child at all. And I drifted away for many years. And it was until it was actually my second marriage when I actually met my current husband at church. And that's when I really knew I needed to get back and that Christ really needed to be part of my life. And I joined the church immediately. And I've been all in, and I just continue to learn, which is the process too. I think that might be the intimidation of maybe new believers or people that haven't made that step, is that they feel like they're not worthy or that they can't do it or make the time for it. But it's like you say, he seeps into us. We just got to allow him in and believe. So yeah, it's really good. So how has that power, his power, helped you with the day-to-day of this thing called diabetes?
Yeah, that is an interesting story. And I talk about it a little bit in the introduction to the new book. But it wasn't until about a year ago that I connected diabetes and faith, which sounds odd because I've had a personal faith for a super long time now, and diabetes obviously for 30 years. So, but I just connected it about a year ago. We were in the middle of a Bible reading plan. My husband and his sister and I were reading together, and we were reading through the Gospel of John. And we read a passage that tells about Jesus healing the blind man. And the people around him, his disciples, are asking, who sinned to make this man blind? And Jesus says, no, there was no sin that caused this. This happened so that God's power can be seen in him, right? So that God can be glorified through this, because Jesus is getting ready to heal him, right? And so God's going to be glorified through that. And that just completely flipped my perspective of diabetes on its head. No one in my family has it. No one I knew at the time of diagnosis had it. No doctors have ever really been able to fully tell me what happened. But reading that day made me think, okay, perhaps this has happened so that God's power can somehow be seen. Maybe this happened so that God can be glorified through it. And I just instantly embraced that idea.
Yeah. To see him in all things, right? To see the purpose in all things. Yeah. I love that. That's so good. That's so good. So how has the day-to-day, do you lean on him when it comes to those frustrating highs and lows?
Yeah.
I do.
Goodness.
Like the patience of it. And
right. There are a lot of very real frustrations with diabetes and lots of challenges and complications that may come and all sorts of things that I view it with a different lens now. Like, how can God be glorified through it? How can I use this chronic illness that I have to bring people to God's word through writing, through blogging? How can I help people to see Jesus through this? How can I use it in good, really, is the ultimate question.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's still the highs and lows of diabetes. I mean, you can't get away from that. But it's given me a different lens to see things through and to appreciate, honestly, like I have an opportunity to give him glory through this. And I'm thankful that I even see that now.
Yeah. It sure brings a lot more peace into our daily life. And, because the effects of highs and lows can make us a little cranky.
Yes, I will admit that.
That is just the physical and the mental, emotional side of, that feeling of defeat, of making mistakes, just not, I'm hitting the mark that day. Speaking of marks, I was looking at, you have some wonderful articles too. On your website, you list some blog articles. So just so the listeners know, your website is devotionsondiabetes.com. And one of the ones, marking the milestone of diabetes. Can you speak on that one? That one struck out to me. I think I've read through all your articles. I've done a speed read on some of them, I will admit, but that one really struck me. And so what inspired you with that topic? And if you could just share just a little bit about it, if it can be fresh on your head right now.
Yeah, for sure. I remember, this was just, a month or 6 weeks ago that I posted that one. Mm-hmm. And we had just finished celebrating my birthday, and my son's birthday was the following month, my daughter's birthday the following month. And I was just sort of in this like birthday celebration, birthday prep for the kids kind of and my son was turning 5 and my daughter was turning 10. And it just felt like, 10's a big deal, especially, my goodness. Mm-hmm. And so I was just in this mode of feeling like we were hitting milestones. And that reminded me of when I received my Journey Award. Mm-hmm. At the time, I received it from Eli Lilly, who I think they now go through children with diabetes to give those out. But it's just a little medal that mm-hmm. I got in the mail when I hit 25 years with type 1. And it's just, I remember getting it, and I write about that in the blog. I remember getting it. I remember looking at it and just sort of stopping and realizing like, oh my goodness, 25 years. What else have I done for 25 years?
Right.
And so I remember like, wow, this is such a milestone. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote about that on the blog, and it, of course, relates right into the biblical application of Joshua and how they marked the milestones. And they need to remember, and God gives us milestones to remember his goodness and his faithfulness. Yes.
Again, to point back to him, because without him, we wouldn't have made it 25 years in your case, or 30 years, 40 years. So, the true strength does lie in him. And the other article that I wanted to mention was the importance of slowing down, which struck me because that's something, we live in a pretty fast-paced world, and it's hard enough, I think, with just with the day-to-day running a home, children, husband, jobs, and then we have this other part-time, full-time job. I don't know, depending on the day, it feels like it's a full-time job of diabetes. So how did you, what kind of advice can you give us on the importance of slowing down?
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned this one. This one was written by my co-blogger. She is fantastic. She's a super good friend of mine, and has a son with type 1. He's elementary school age now, but was diagnosed at age 3. And they're like 6 years into type 1 with her son. And so she is the one that wrote this. And she just gives some super duper practical examples, which I love being practical in blog post. But it's this idea of, like you said, we live in a world that moves at a quick clip, and we just have so much on our plates, all varying different things, but sometimes it's just a lot. And she talks about the story of Mary and Martha, and how Martha was anxious and troubled, and Mary chose what was good, and that was to be at Jesus' feet. And so she gives some practical examples of, here are the things that I love to do to slow down. And so it's just good to recenter and take a breath and stop the hustle and the to-do list, which I am so guilty of. I'm a pretty type A person. And so when she wrote this, I'm like, oh, she's preaching to me about this. I
Speaking to
hear
all of
this.
us. Yeah.
Yes.
I guess that's why it struck me as well.
Right.
Just trying to put it in perspective, aren't we?
Right.
So tell me, obviously you've been a writer for a while and you've enjoyed and doing the graphic end of it as well. I love your graphics in your book is beautiful. What you're posting online, it's just so inspirational. It's light, it's positive, it's relatable. I just love all of it. And so tell us about your book and the story of where that started. And I know it's now officially launched out there. So by the time this episode airs, it will be on the shelves for maybe close to a month now. So it's definitely available. So tell us a bit about Devotions on Diabetes.
Yes, it's called Devotions on Diabetes, a 30-day journey to anchor your soul. And it's on Amazon, or you can find it on my blog website. There's a link to it on Amazon. And that's devotionsondiabetes.com, like you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. But it's a 30-day devotional, and it's written really for anyone dealing with diabetes. Although I write it from a type 1 perspective, obviously. I had a beta reader who has type 2. She was telling me this applies to any chronic illness. I was finding things in here that I could apply to another issue I'm dealing with. And so that's good. There are a lot of topics that I write about in it that would cross into other illnesses as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But primarily those with diabetes, a parent of a child with diabetes, or maybe a spouse of someone with it, just whoever you love has diabetes. That's who it's written for.
Yeah. You have some amazing, I have the book and I'm on day 7 right now. So I just got it just a little over a week ago. And you just do a great job at, obviously it's a topic per day, or it's kind of a mindset topic, and it's all drives back to the Bible, and you reference scripture, and you inspire us to journal and to pray and to write down praises and prayers in the notes section. So it's just, I'm really loving it. And what you said is true too, about just people that are in your life that may want to just understand it better. That's a really interesting connection. I didn't think of that prior. And like a spouse, it might be, it'd be good for anybody, but definitely somebody that has diabetes in their life and wants to just better understand it. So.
Right. Yeah, that was the goal in writing it, is really, the format of each day, and it's just a chunk to read each day. Mm-hmm. But like you said, there's some additional reading stuff. There's some lines for writing thoughts and prayers. But the idea is that there's something diabetes related every single day. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of flip the script and say, okay, how can we look at that through the lens of the Bible? Yeah. There's a day about, I'm anxious when I pack for a trip. I don't think you've gotten there yet. On day 7, not quite, which we'll get there. I won't ruin it for you. But there's a day I'm anxious packing for a trip, and, who else is anxious and why am I anxious? And, and so I go back to some scripture and try to figure that out through the trip.
Yeah, you just did a beautiful job. I'm looking at every day and I'm like, wow, she found something to pull it from. And it's like, wow, and because I'm starting to learn the Bible more and more. I know our church, we went through the New Testament last year. We actually are going through it again this year. So we just started John. And our BSF, which is Bible Study Fellowship, we just finished up the Old Testament. So bit by bit, I'm getting through the Bible from cover to cover. And so it's really cool to be able to reference back. It's exciting for me, a new Bible reader, right, to it's just such a beautiful connection, and to recognize and, to see these stories and to know that you've read them before, or it's just a recollection of what you've read. So, which is the purpose with, that is what, and you could probably say this too, anytime you read a story, it's going to hit us differently. It just depends on the stage of life, the stage of where you're at with other things going on, the stage, your age and all of that. It's going to refer back, and it's going to hit and affect you differently, which is what I think is the purpose of the Bible as well. That's another purpose. It's a book that doesn't go away. It's always there for us. Yeah.
Yes. I'm always amazed at how I can go back and read the same words, literally the same words, and they stand out differently.
Yeah. Yep, well, I'm going to skip to day 14. So, okay. And this one is titled Identity. And this one really struck me. And, this is a big thing with all of us living with diabetes, but I think, and I've wrote articles about diabetes stigma and that, kind of a stereotype of really what this disease is and what it means that we can and can't do. And sometimes people put this on us, other people in our lives or strangers, and we put a lot of this on ourselves. So I'm going to read just a little bit about this, and then we can just kind of chat about it too. So as you write here, diabetes can sure feel consuming. Constant questions and day-to-day thoughts can ping pong through our heads, hijacking our day and keeping us from focusing fully on other parts of our lives. It can completely take over if we let it. It can feel like it's the biggest part of our lives because it affects so many areas of our lives, almost like it's our identity. But it isn't. Your diagnosis is not your identity. Read that again, she says. Thank you, Kaycee. And you are not a diabetic. You are a child of God who is living with diabetes. Do you see the difference? Question. It's subtle, but it's an important distinction. So that just speaks volumes to me. And I'm hoping some of the listeners here can kind of understand, really where your words, the intentions behind that and what you were hoping to just kind of inspire with that.
Yeah, I think we can get wrapped up in it very easily because it does affect every area of our life. And so we're constantly thinking about it, constantly checking our numbers and giving it shots and looking at food and all the things. And it's all day, every day. It doesn't ever take a vacation. I write about that in the book too. But it isn't our identity. Like God gave us our identity on purpose and with a purpose when he made us. Mm-hmm. And so that's a part of who we are, but it isn't who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like you were just referring to with, I think of James in the Bible too. And he didn't feel like he was worthy to be one of the disciples just based on his own inadequacies. And isn't that all of us, right? We don't think that that we have enough value and worth. And I think diabetes can do that over the years, or newly diagnosed as well. We feel less of a person. We feel weak. Yes. We feel handicapped. We feel like we have to be separate. And it's important to know that that God doesn't see us that way, and we shouldn't see ourselves that way. But it takes that reiteration. It doesn't happen overnight to suddenly say, "Hey, I'm strong. I've got this. I'm confident." So, a book like this is perfect just to keep filling us with that. So, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what other, do you have any other, anything else you want to talk about the book? Is there anything that you want us to know specifically, or anything to come?
I would anything to come. I don't know. The book just launched and I'm already like, ooh, I could write another book. I just need to pause, right? I just need to pause. Mm-hmm. So, I would just love feedback. I would love feedback. And so if you are reading the book and something stands out to you, or you're finishing up with it in a while, and you just want to reach out, there's a place on my website that you can share your story, or you can share feedback. Whatever. I would love to hear from readers what they're thinking.
That is a great idea. I like that you incorporated that, because that's, that really is the next step.
Yeah.
It's like anything we learn, it kind of, books, podcasts, articles, all these things that we learn from and we take from. But in some are, sometimes it's okay to just kind of take the information, it sinks in. But some of it can really impact our life long term. And a book like this can do that. And there's definitely some resources out there that I hope, because I tend to be a learner like that too. I'm all about taking action. I don't think that just kind of reading and walking away, or listening and walking away, it's not going to maybe fill the cup as well as it is if there's a next step. So I like that idea that not only do you learn from what they learned, but that's going to help inspire you on, what you decide to create next. And It's about creating relationships too. So these are an opportunity for you to grow closer to women or men, people that are affected by diabetes. Yeah,
absolutely.
Really nice. So what continues? You've definitely, you've got faith in God in your corner. And I love that, because that does make a difference with how we can mindfully think about, why we have this disease, and to not feel like a victim, but to feel like it can be something to actually help inspire and empower us. But what else gives you hope for the future? Just as you continue to manage type 1 diabetes.
Yeah. Well, I think thinking about the long term is really helpful to me. Mm-hmm. And so obviously I want to take care of myself, to be healthy for my husband, healthy for my children. Mm-hmm. You think about things down the road with graduations or weddings or babies, or, obviously my kids are 10 and 5, but we've got a ways to go, but I want to be there. And so it helps me to consider the long term for sure. Obviously thinking about glorifying God through this inspires me to take good care of myself as well. But thinking about the big picture too, is very helpful. We've come a long, long way. Even since you and I were diagnosed.
Absolutely.
The technology has improved drastically. There was a day 100 years ago that diabetes was a death sentence, and it isn't anymore. And today, someone with diabetes who has good care and attention to it can live a long, healthy life.
Absolutely.
And so I think just having a thankful heart that we have access to what we have, and the medical care and the technology and choices. I know you and I manage ours similarly in some ways and differently in some ways. And we have those options where we are. And so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Because, just as long as, or just like our relationship with God and speaking with him in gratitude. Yeah. And it sounds kind of funny when we say that we give, that we're grateful, even when you have to live with a disease like, or any chronic disease, but to start with gratitude, and to thank him for, like, just what you said, all the resources, the help, the community, the pouring out of arms of, that can be around us, that the books that inspire us. Gratitude. It must start with that, and that's something I learned too when I was first getting into the Bible and doing daily prayer studies and all of that, is that he wants us to thank him first. Thankfulness, it starts with gratitude. So that might be the first lesson. I don't know. Yes. But it sure is, it's steered my priorities too. And, just a perspective of why I'm here. And, the strength really does come from him. And I'm so thankful for that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, an emotional support isn't easily available for us. It can be, or it can be, it can also be kind of like a wall, I think, for some people. I know it was for me when I was a lot younger, just managing diabetes. I kind of did put that wall up around, like I didn't need help. I got this. I kept it to myself and all of that. But what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's newly diagnosed, or a warrior like you and I, who are just struggling? And what do you think the first step should be for them, whether it's medically driven or?
Sure. Yeah. I think you're right. Sometimes we do put up that wall. And I think there's just something there's something humbling about a chronic illness, and realizing that maybe you don't have control of something. Like, that's scary, and that affects you mentally and emotionally for sure. It can be challenging and sad and exhausting. This book, although you're right, it's very positive in its outlook, it doesn't erase the fact that it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It actually addresses the fact that it's hard in several places.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. I don't ever want to discount that, but I would say, especially to someone new, I would say find your people. Find a good endocrinology team that you can count on to help you. Find someone who's had diabetes for a while, who's been there, somebody that just gets it. Don't do it alone, because you don't have to. There are so many people with diabetes anymore. You don't have to do it alone. And so that is the first thing I would say, is just find your people. Don't be isolated because of this.
Yeah. Nice.
And I think I'd also say, take it day by day. Give yourself grace as you learn. And I mean, I don't know that I'd say it gets easier over time, but I think you get better at it. And that makes it feel lighter.
Yeah.
And so I just find people to rally around you and learn as you go, and give yourself grace and room to learn. And that means realizing that, oh, wait, I probably should have done this. Maybe that was a mistake. Well, maybe it was, but you learned, and that's what's the important thing.
Yeah. It's life gives us lessons, and ours is something we got to wear in our sleeve, and it doesn't take a day off. So that is, maybe that's the difference between other struggles that happen in life, because we all have struggles, we all have adversity. God tests every single one of us, sometimes more in one day than other days. But diabetes is just one of those, just one of those tests, I think. And he gives it to those who are strong. So I often say that to, people that I know with diabetes, clients I've worked with, is you don't realize how strong you are. Yeah. It doesn't take, and God gives us what we can handle. He knows us better than we even realize, right?
He does. He does. And he's with us to give us that strength. I think that's the difference maker too, is that there are things we can't do on our own, and within our limited human abilities, but he will provide the strength that we need.
Yeah. Just got to stop and ask, don't we?
Yes.
Lean on him, right? Yes. He wants us to be dependent on him for sure. Well, I could just talk about this all day.
Just keep going.
Yeah, it's just so nice to be able to connect. Very grateful to have met you, and to meet. I've had a chance to meet a lot of women with diabetes, men with diabetes as well, obviously. My husband has type 1, as some of the viewers might know. So, to be in that circle, but when you can connect with somebody that not only lives the same struggles, but also, chooses to do it with God in our corner, it's just a special, special connection. And I'm just very, very grateful. And I know our relationship will not stop here. This is just the beginning. So Yes. And I would love to invite you back another time. We can unpack another title of an article, another book, whatever happens, or maybe we can just chat some more about what's going on with our life and our kids and everything else. So yeah.
Sounds great.
So yes, I hope you would take that invitation, and we will, we hope to have you here again, and our listeners have a chance to hear more from you, Kaycee. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Love to.
Mm-hmm. Well, share with everybody how they can stay connected with you, your website, and again, if you want to repeat how they can get a hold of your book and buy it.
Yeah. So the website, it's a blog website, basically. Mostly it's blog articles. You can visit that at devotionsondiabetes.com. There's a way to subscribe on there so that you'll receive the weekly blog. So that's all good. There's a button on there where you can purchase the book, or you can just browse Amazon. You can search for it by name on Amazon.
Very nice. And you're also on Instagram. So you are also online.
I am.
And your handle is the same?
Yes, Devotions on Diabetes.
Yes, definitely follow Kaycee on Instagram. She's got some amazing things that she's sharing and stories. And yeah, just sharing. That's the best part is, it's just to see you living life and enjoying life, thriving with diabetes.
Right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks again, Kaycee, and definitely connect with her. And I will link all of the inside the show notes, her website, and ways to connect with her, and a button to buy the book. Make it super easy for you all. Again, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been so fun.
I know. I love chatting. Love to chat. So we will see you soon, and we'll see you back here next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the Type 1 in Midlife podcast. Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. And be sure to check us out at abundanthealthwithmelissa.com for our free resources. See you next week.